Your Omaha High is being sponsored by Best Buy Signs, creator of the Omaha Parks program, OmahaFastFoods.com, Kohl's Pharmacy and Home Care, Certified Transmission, Centris Federal Credit Union, Shold-It, Rotella's Italian Bakery, La Peeps Restaurant, Performance Auto Group, Two Men and a Truck, Crane Landscape Construction, Shout Weekly, Mid-America Speakers Bureau, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Critter Control. Welcome to Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that will leave you feeling great about yourself, Omaha's heroes, and Omaha, where we live, work, and play. So park yourself on the bench and have fun. Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that you turn to every Saturday morning to learn great things about how you can improve your life, no matter what level it's at. And we do that 3 different ways. The first way is you get to share in 4 motivational vignettes that are unique, that you can adopt to your own personal lifestyle without making any dramatic changes. And the second part, of course, is we talk about a magnificent nonprofit organization here in Omaha, Nebraska that does some wonderful work for people who are in need. And then each and every week we bring on a very, very special guest, someone who does extraordinary things, either for themselves, the city of Omaha, or for nonprofits. And today you're going to be in for a very special treat, because we have Jody Crone, who does some tremendous work helping people out. Jody, we'll be talking a little bit later, but I know everyone is going to be so inspired about the amount of work that she puts into it. So sit back, relax, and begin to enjoy the very, very first segment of these motivational vignettes. Now, I want to talk to the people out there who bowl. You know who you are. You've gone to that bowling alley, and the goal that you have in mind is to have that perfect game. You know the score, 300. You know that each and every frame, every ball that you roll has to be a strike in order for you to get that 300. And you know what? You prepare for it. You get the shoes for it. You get that mental mindset ready to go to get that 300. But I do have a question. How many of us have failed to reach that 300? How many of us walk away and we bowled a 120, that's me by the way, a 130, a 150, some of us even get to 200, some of us 250. Hardly anybody gets to 300. But does it stop you? No, it doesn't. Each and every week, or each and every time you get that opportunity to bowl, you go there. Failure is not an option to you, because you know that maybe one day you'll get it. And when you get it, will you stop? Nope, you'll continue to go for more. But here's what's confusing. What about in life? In life, we go after our goals. We go after our pursuits. And the moment we fail, we walk away. I don't understand that. If we try so hard to get that 300 in bowling, then we should do the same thing in life. We should train. We should prepare. We should get that mental agility. And each and every time, just like the bowling score, we know it's going to get better. Sure, I'm a 120 bowler. It's a heck of a lot better than the 80 I used to bowl. And I know one day it's going to go higher and higher, because I'm not going to give up. And I don't want you or anybody that you know to give up in life. Because anytime something doesn't go perfect, just think about bowling, get that mindset, and transfer it to the goals that you want. Now, each and every one of us has an automobile. You know what's funny? You ever look at that speedometer? The speedometer, in some cases, can go as high as 160 miles per hour. Have you ever driven 160 miles per hour? If you have, don't admit it. I don't want to know about it. Have you ever driven 100 miles per hour? If you have, I don't want to know about it. But if you drive the speed limit, why do you get an automobile that goes as fast as 160 miles per hour and you never get to use it? The answer is because you know you can. You know that potential is there. You know that the machine that you have is capable of doing it. And in that particular case, you have made a decision, and I'm thankful that you have, not to do 160 miles per hour. There is a limit that is set upon you. Now, the question I have for each and every one of us to think about is, what is the limit that you set on yourself? You see, the limit that you should set is that 160 miles per hour, not the speed limit that somebody else gives you. That's not who you are. As a matter of fact, I want to even change that. I want to get rid of your thought process of any limitations whatsoever. And as you do that, I know you can admit that you are not working to the potential that you have been given. You are not using every fiber, every ounce, every mental capability to really go as fast, and even more important, as far as you want to. You know in the automobile you want to, and you know in life you can. All you need to do is take advantage of the power that you have. Take advantage of everything. Take advantage of the education. You remember you one time you learned how to drive. You can also learn how to drive faster. You can learn how to drive safer. All you need to do in your mindset, anytime you say something, oh, you know what, these are my limits, get rid of that. Just think of this 160 miles per hour and go as fast as you possibly can. But it's got to be in incremental steps. So right now, I want you to get rid of the limits that you have established for yourself and continue to accelerate the growth of your life. And how many of us love football? You know, I saw something on the radio the other day and TV that about 20 million of us watch a football game when it's on. How many of us right now actually participate in fantasy football? That's the biggest growing thing that's happening today. People sit there and they study the players. People sit there and they look at all the charts. They look at all the analysis. They look not only at past performances, but they look at potential future performances. And they pick their team. Now, here's a question. You're a player. It might not be football. It might be sports of any type. It might be business. It might be personal life. How often are you going to be chosen on the top of the list for somebody else's fantasy? See, believe it or not, you should be somebody else's fantasy. You should be the one that someone says, you know what, I want this person on my team. This person has a performance record which to me shows a greater potential to make my team succeed. What do you need to do in order to have that accomplished? What do you need to do to become somebody else's fantasy? You remember the old TV show Mission Impossible, the old one on TV? They pick people based on what their potential is. You know that you have made it in life when people pick you for their fantasy team. All you got to do is get ready for it. All you got to do is prepare for it. And by the way, when you make that team, you best be being a team player, because otherwise they'll kick you right off. And that's important. And how many of us recently have heard about this new iPhone 6? No, I'm not going to be doing a commercial for the iPhone 6. That's not what we're here for. But you know what? Almost overnight, people have stood online in the internet to go ahead and pre-order the Apple. Now, there's another organization, by the way, which has done absolutely nothing in the past 30 to 40 years. They're in the same business. They're about to go bankrupt. They're about to become obsolete. They did not innovate. They did not change. They didn't do anything where Apple has. Who do you associate yourself with? Do you associate yourself with Apple or the company that is about to go bankrupt? You need to make sure that you are constantly innovating yourself. You may have to make sure that people are going to stand in line because of the value that you bring to others. Don't identify with the shack that's going out of business. Identify with Apple. So let's go ahead and understand the 4 vignettes that we just talked about and what they mean for you. Bowling. Get out there and have that tenacity and always use it in life. Number 2, limits. Hope you just said to yourself, I don't have any limits, because that's the purpose of it. I want you to think about becoming somebody else's fantasy in life, because I want you to be picked for their team. And in order for you to do that, you always have to innovate. You always have to change. And if you are the type of an individual that will go ahead and take these 4 vignettes, you know what's going to happen? You're always going to be on a constant high. You're always going to be part of that Omaha HIgh. You're always going to be the one smiling. You're going to be the one that's successful. Bowling, no limits. Be somebody else's fantasy and always innovate and always be Apple. And that's what you need to do. Now, let's go ahead and analyze and understand a wonderful new organization that is doing some tremendous work. And the organization that we're going to be talking about this week, believe it or not, is the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. Listen carefully. The mission of the Crohn and Colitis Foundation of America and the local Nebraska and Iowa chapter is to cure Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, and to improve the quality of life of children and adults affected by these diseases. You probably don't know this, but nearly 1 in 200 Americans suffer from inflammatory bowel disease, known as IBD, which encompasses Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. IBD affects 1.4 million Americans and is a chronic debilitating digestive disease of which there is no cure. IBD can affect anyone, children, teenagers, adults, men and women alike. The toll is both physical and emotional, but the people who are affected are reluctant to talk about it. The Iowa chapter and Nebraska chapters proudly serve these two states, funding research, raising awareness, and providing education and support to IBD patients. CCFA has active patient support groups led by dedicated facilitators throughout the area. The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America works to raise money and awareness for these diseases, as well as providing research funding for better treatment. To find out more information about this magnificent organization, visit www.ccfa.org/chapters/Iowa, Nebraska, or simply email them at nebraska@ccfa.org. And now, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to someone who has dedicated their spare time, and probably a lot of their professional time, to help others. One of the things that we love to talk about on your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg is how people are contributing to the betterment of our community. And there is no better way to do that than to volunteer. So you are about to have some magnificent insights into the world to volunteer as I introduce you to Jody Crone. Jody, it's so great to have you on the show.
Nice to be here, Andy.
And I'm just wondering how much time you dedicate in your basic life to helping others. Is there a percentage? What do you do?
You could really put a time frame to it. You know, it's just something that it takes all year to create one huge event, you know, and then a couple of weeks just to create a small event. So it's just something that I put into my everyday life.
So in other words, you wake up in the morning and you begin to plan and you begin to say, okay, I've got my professional life, I've got my family life, and I've also got my volunteer life where I'm going to be helping others.
Actually, Andy, my volunteer life became because of my professional life. 7 years ago, I bought a bar, and I figured out that that was going to be a great platform for me to raise money for people in the community that need a little help. And also I raised money for the Nebraska Med Center and the Tommy Kraft Memorial.
Now let me see if I understand this correctly. You went into business in order to help other people.
I've always been a motorcycle enthusiast. I've been riding for years. And I sold real estate for 20 years for my mother. And I got tired of that, and my husband said, buy a bar. So I did, and when I bought the bar, I figured out in a hurry that was a huge platform for me to create all these poker runs that we could raise money for people in the community and some big staples in the community also.
You know, I have to share something with you that I've never revealed to the public, okay? And they're about to learn something about me. I really admire people who ride motorcycles because the best I ever did, I hate to admit this, but I will, was a moped. I had a moped up until probably the age of 35, and when the spring came out, that's the first thing I did. And I'll tell you why. I could never figure out how to do all the transmissions on a motorcycle, but the moped
was easy.
Yeah. So I drove around on a moped 35 miles per hour with my helmet. Yeah, I looked kind of silly, but you know what? I enjoyed it. But one of the things I want everybody to take away, at least from the opening part of what we talked about, is a mission and a vision and how to get that accomplished. So let's go out to these events. Now, what kind of events do you do and for whom?
I do one big event every year, right around the third week of August, and it's called the Doghouse Rally. And I close down the street in downtown Waterloo, and we bring in 2 live bands and some street vendors, and it's a motorcycle poker run.
Right.
So we'll go to 4 different small towns and draw a card. People pay admission for the poker run. Then they pay admission to get in the street. And I have silent auction items that people donate. And I raise a lot of money for the Nebraska Med Center.
Now, when
and
you say
I donate it specifically to the burn unit.
That's okay. When you say a lot of money,
well, it's a lot of money to me.
Give me a number.
$5,000-$6,000 on that day.
And that is a lot of money. Because, sometimes people think, all right, you've got to be a multimillionaire. You've got to raise millions of dollars to really be considered a fundraiser. Not true. Not true, right? $5,000-$6,000 in a day's work. And by the way, the burn unit uses that money. Without that money, they'd be $5,000 to $6,000 less in things that they do for the community. Now, in addition to the Burn Center, what other people do you look for in order to help?
I do a lot of stuff for individuals, like, if somebody's got a small child that's sick. When parents have a kid that's in the hospital, the extra gas money, the extra time off of work, all the different, babysitters for the kids so that mom and dad can go to the hospital.
Wow.
So many expenses come into play that they don't even think about. So if there's somebody in need like that, then we'll put a small fundraiser together and raise $500-$600 to $1,500.
How many years have you been doing this?
7 years.
And about over the 7 years, how many families like that have been impacted by you?
I'd say 25 to 30.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That really is. That really says that this particular individual says, you know what, we're going to find a very special group of 25 to 30, and we're going to help them get through a very, very difficult part of their life. Now, I hope that nobody watching this program needs to be the recipient of what Jody does. I really do. But I also wonder if each and every one of us on the inside have found a way to contribute. Maybe not money, maybe time, maybe ideas, maybe creativity to help somebody out. Because the moment that something happens poorly to somebody, that's the time for us to step up. But there's a challenge, and I'm a little bit confused. There's more than 25 or 30 families out there that are looking for assistance. And I hate to ask you this question. How do you determine who you will help and who you won't?
So far in the 7 years, people have come to me. The very first time I did it, when I realized that this was something we could do well with, there was a kid in town that had some issues, and I said, let's just throw a little fundraiser together, and 6-year-old boy, we did it. It turned out great. So now people come to me, and I've never really turned anybody down, Andy.
That's it. You know what? For people that know me, I very seldom have a loss for words, but you just had me stall for a moment because I just find that remarkable. Now let's go back to nonprofits for a moment.
Okay.
What is the biggest issues that nonprofits have in terms of getting people to volunteer?
I don't know the answer to that. I think you're either a volunteering person or you're not. I heard you say something about time and money.
Right.
Time is money.
Right.
So if you don't have money to give your time.
And what would be a good amount of time for people to balance their professional lives and their family lives? How much of their time should they dedicate to helping others?
I think if you really just picked one particular event, or one cause, and just donated a little bit of time, I don't think it has to be a lot. There's a lot of us out here, and everybody's busy. They got busy lives.
Sure.
So if you gave 10 hours a year, that'd be fantastic.
And you know what? I probably think that most of us would have thought that the answer would have been more than 10 hours a year. But I want to ask you a question. If each and every one of us dedicated 10 hours per year to a nonprofit, to a needy family, not necessarily money, 10 hours, that's it. So instead of having a cup of coffee with someone that takes an hour, take that hour and dedicate it to an organization. You know, there are about 600,000 people in Omaha, in the greater area. Can you imagine for just a moment if each and every one of us, even children by the way, dedicated 10 hours a year? But here's the good news. Research indicates that Omaha, Nebraska is probably one of the better philanthropic areas in the entire country, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of time. And I've seen that in the work that I do and the boards that I'm with. People do come to volunteer. What makes Omaha that type of a city?
You know, I think, in my opinion, Andy, I think it's a small town, big city atmosphere. We're just small enough that everybody knows everybody. And I think we're just the heart of the Midwest, and we're just giving people.
Yeah, and if you take a look at what Omaha has done as an area, and when I say Omaha, also the outskirts, I want you to think about the hospitals, the medical care that we have. And the other challenge is there is an organization called the Nonprofit Association of the Midlands. If you take a look at the number of nonprofits that are featured there that need people to come in, like you, by the way, to come in and to help them with 10 hours a week, you know what that does for you and your psyche. There's a lot of studies that have said the more you volunteer, it releases some type of a chemical. Don't ask me the name, I can't pronounce it. It releases a chemical in your brain that goes throughout your body that makes you feel good. But you shouldn't do it for that purpose. You should do it because it makes you feel good. And watch this. How does it make you feel good? What has that done for your personal relationships and your professional relationships?
You know, it's came back to me tenfold, you know.
Give me an example. When you say tenfold, either an emotional feeling or some sense of satisfaction. How can you put that in words?
Well, you know, it's really hard to put into words an emotion when you've done something for somebody that's made their life better.
Right.
I just think that, you know, do unto others as you do unto yourself.
Sure, sure.
And I think that anytime you help somebody and pay it forward, you're a better person because of it.
Yes. And you know, so often, one of the biggest challenges in life, someone says to you, describe love. You can't describe love. It's an emotion.
Yeah.
And what Jody said was so accurate that I asked her, I'd really try to get words out of her. Well, she resisted. Why? There is none. It's an emotional feeling. And you know, once in a while if you're down, once in a while if you're bored, once in a while when you say to yourself, geez, I wish there was something more that I could do, there is. Pick up the phone and volunteer. And you know what's interesting? Sometimes you don't even have to pick up the phone. Why? People are calling you. You know how often you're sitting home in the evening and the phone rings, right? And someone's asking for time, someone's asking for money, someone's asking for you to stuff envelopes. And I have to admit, when they call me to stuff envelopes, sometimes for the Heart Association, all they're asking me to do is to put 10 letters in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send it out. I confess that I'm one of those that sometimes resist it. And as a result of that, one of the things I'm going to do now, as a result of talking to Jody, is when they call, yeah, I'm going to say yes. And you know what the big step is? When they call, I'm not only going to say yes, I'm going to say, what else can I do? Or maybe, if I'm just sitting around doing nothing, I might even pick up the phone and say, how can I help? Because I think that's what you do.
Yeah.
I just have a hunch that you're looking for people to help. And when you reach out to them and you help them and they give you that great big thank you, you know, I could see you're tearing up already.
Yeah. It's you can't describe the feeling. You're right, Andy, when you said, you know, put it into words. I was like, well, you can't. There's no way to do it. You just have to, and you don't have to be somebody, you know, like me. I had the platform to do it. When all these people, the bikers come in and for these events, they're all helping.
How many bikers?
Well, on the Med Center event, I had 650 motorcycles.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
650, can you imagine that? You know what that reminds me of real quick? One time I took Carol, my wife, on a vacation, and I had this great idea to take her to Sturgis when I first moved into this area. Oh. And the weekend that I picked, you know what's coming.
You did it during the rally.
The weekend that I picked was the rally weekend. And here I am, a gentleman from originally New York City, and we're driving up to the area. And all of a sudden I see all these motorcycles, and I'm saying, what the heck is going on? Nicest people in the world, by the way. Sometimes there's a stereotype that says, don't worry about it. When you get 600 motorcycle folks
together
to come to your rallies, to come together, that speaks volumes of what each and every one of us can do, which each and every one of us should do. Jody, if there was one thing that you would like to have everybody remember from the time you and I spent together, what would that be?
Pay it forward.
Meaning what?
If somebody gives to you, give it right back.
If someone gives to you, and what happens if someone doesn't give to you?
Give anyway.
Give anyway. There you go. Jody, thank you so much for being here, for inspiring each and every one of us. Of course, like we always talk about at the end of every show, you have to be the one that takes the action. And by the way, I've got some great news for you. Next week on your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, we've got another very special guest that is going to teach us about personal leadership as well as the Omaha business community. We're going to have none other than Karen Klingberg come in, and she's going to do a magnificent job in having us learn about things and personal leadership and the business climate in Omaha. So let's go ahead and understand everything we learned this week. First thing, we learned about bowling. Second thing we learned about was 80 miles per hour, 160 miles per hour. There are no limits in your life. Any limit that you set is one that's holding you back. We also learned that each and every one of us should be somebody else's fantasy. And we also learned the following thing: you've always got to reinvent yourself. And we learned about the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And we learned about the wonderful opportunities of taking our lives and dedicating time for the benefit of someone else. That's what your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg is all about. That's the type of life that each and every one of us need to live. That's the type of life that will always make us better. And I am so much looking forward to you and everyone else returning next week to this very station, to this very time, to be with your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg. See you then. Your Omaha High was sponsored by Best Buy Signs, creator of the Omaha Parks program, OmahaFastFoods.com, Kohl's Pharmacy and Home Care, Certified Transmission, Centris Federal Credit Union, Shold It, Rotella's Italian Bakery, La Peeps Restaurant, Performance Auto Group, Two Men and a Truck, Crane Landscape Construction, Shout Weekly, Mid-America Speakers Bureau, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Critter Control,